Good afternoon, everybody. Sorry, we're a minute or two late there. We had a bit of an issue with some technical issues, but we're there, and now we are good and ready to go. So I will jump straight in as we're running a little late. Hello and welcome to episode 4 of season 2 of Shoponomics. My name is Paul Stephen and I'm your host today. And today's episode is called Embrace the Data and Your Customer Will Love You For It. And joining me today is Mark Hammond, currently head of e-commerce at Heels. Welcome, Mark. It's great to have you. You've had some pretty interesting roles across your career, so there's loads to talk about here, but I'd just love it if you could just first introduce yourself and a little bit about your e-commerce journey.
Oh, yeah, thanks, Paul, and yeah, thanks for having me. So, yeah, my name's Mark Hammond, head of e-commerce at Heels. For those who don't know the brand, we've been around 214 years now. So initially, we were the first importer of French feather mattresses into the UK, but for most of our history, we've been designing and innovating contemporary furniture and homewares, as well as selling some of the best designers across the UK and elsewhere in Europe. So we now have 7 stores across the UK, up from Newcastle down to Canterbury, but our big showroom and our pride is on Tottenham Court Road in London, where it has pretty much been there for all of its history. So yeah, we're about 50-50 online and offline now. Obviously that's been growing in recent years. For myself, I think, hence the subject of this talk, my background is a database developer and analyst. I stumbled into e-commerce. I don't even know what it's called then. It wasn't called e-commerce probably 20 years ago. Yeah. And just managing massive PPC data sets of millions of keywords and product data feeds of hundreds of thousands of products. And it became quite apparent quite early that the whole all of e-commerce and all of the kind of customer journeys was built off the back of data and the knowledge. And I quite quickly kind of found myself an e-commerce manager role. And really, that's kind of where I've been for the rest of my career. Everything from customer acquisition, website optimization, through to retention. I guess while my big love is retail, and where I am now, I'm very, very happy. I have, as Paul said, kind of had a varying career, from building a pet-friendly travel agent to delivering D2C propositions for publishers. And at one point, I was a head of digital for what is now the UK's biggest pub company. Like I say, back home in retail, and I'm happy where I am.
Fantastic. Yeah, lots to dive in. But before we do so, though, this is an interactive event, so for the listeners out there, if you want to get involved, you can in this conversation. You can sort of ask to speak in the panel there in LinkedIn, and we'll try and kind of get those questions at the end, and either I can ask them for you, or we can invite you onto the virtual stage for you to ask them directly, a bit like good old radio. And don't forget, you can emoji and react to things along the way as well, so that's all good. I'm going to start with this one, really. You were once described by a colleague as pretty creative for a data guy. So I love that. But what do you think was behind that compliment?
It was a compliment. I think you could read it either way. And it was from the CEO as well, who recently joined. I think historically she'd seen data guys as those, in darkened rooms huddled over a computer, which was arguably me at the beginning of my career, and was quite surprised that I was, actively involved in marketing decisions and campaign creation, and you're really, driving a lot of our acquisition strategy and our creative direction, as well as being the guy who was kind of analysing how it was working. So, yeah, no, definitely a compliment. And, we're still friends now, so can't be too bad.
Is there anything that you would describe as being to warrant you being particularly creative? Like you say, you're not just a guy in a darkened room. Why creative, do you think?
I think it's more from certainly wouldn't want me designing a website, not that kind of creative. I think it's more from a campaign creation and really thinking about what will resonate with the customer, and understanding trends and seasonality, and just being a little bit creative and going against the norm with some of the ideas that we came up with.
Yeah, I mean, we call this session "Embrace the Data and Your Customer Will Love You For It." For you, though, what is data? Let's just sort of pick that apart a bit, really. What do you mean when you mean data?
It's a big question, Paul.
Yeah.
Everything, anything. I think, we loosely bucket it into 4 areas. So customer data, try and know everything and anything we can about the customer. product data, how can we ensure it is as rich and as descriptive as possible? Sales data, how deep can we get in the analysis and granular with the level of what we understand of the sale? And then all the stuff that doesn't convert. So everything around acquisition, impression, share, reach, that kind of stuff. And then obviously the joy of attempting to join as much of it up as possible.
So in terms of sort of customer data, are you, there won't be anybody on here, I would imagine, who would not use Google Analytics, but what sort of things are you talking? I suppose that's more the last batch rather than the customer data particularly. But so what sort of data would you consider collecting?
We obviously get sales data, and one of the challenges of the business where 50% of our revenue is in store is a gap in knowledge of the customers. So we have recently, I'd say about a year ago, installed digital receipts. So now for a increasingly large percentage of our in-store customers, we are getting at least their email address. We can kind of understand a bit more around purchase patterns, but then for a large chunk of them, they're also signing up for our marketing emails and promotions. So again, we can reach out and get back to them. So there's the real, I guess, more quantitative side of it, but we are doing and continue to do a lot of surveys just to understand a bit more about how our customers are feeling, a lot more kind of, I guess, from the qualitative side, understand where their pain points are, where their challenges are. We do digital surveys. We go out and speak to customers in the store and just try and understand them. It's a really interesting way, and loyalty is not something we may cover today, but it's something we're certainly thinking about. My boss walked early in his career into Heels and started chatting to this customer, and she was, I love Heels, I'm your best customer, I'm a real loyal customer, I love you. And he asked, when was the last time you bought? And she said, like 7 years ago. So actually, from a data perspective, she probably dropped out of an engagement pot. But I guess that's part of the parcel of having a high-end, high-ticket items that are not that regularly bought. Because this lady would have come back to Heels the minute she wanted to buy a piece of furniture. She just hadn't wanted to for 7 years.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose that was asking the question because I'm conscious, like you say, your 50% of your sales are on in person, and it's a sort of a product that definitely someone probably wants to look at, see, feel, sit on, all those sorts of things. So, collecting data in a pure play e-commerce environment is kind of fairly straightforward and a well-trodden path, but things like your store and maybe in your previous roles, even sort of a pub environment, how do you go about sort of encouraging people to share that data?
Well, pubs was an interest. We had 1,000 pubs, bars and clubs across the UK, everything from like an old man pub in the country to some big clubs down in London. And the biggest opportunity was Wi-Fi data. So particularly a lot of our venues had a younger audience. We had 40-odd student pubs. We had some nightclubs that really kind of catered to the 20, 21-year-olds. And obviously data is still a challenge. So getting people to sign up to Wi-Fi, giving a free drink as an incentive to that Wi-Fi or a discount off your kind of next meal purchase captured a significant amount of data. And, it's very rare. It's really challenging from an e-commerce perspective in a lot of hospitality, because when people come to the website, they're essentially just looking if you're open and your address, and increasingly they just go to Google to do that. So actually, a lot of customers will never see your website when they come into the pub. So it is the Wi-Fi was the biggest driver, and how could we have competitions, incentives, quiz nights, anything that got people to engage digitally while in the venue, and then use that data to further kind of, I guess, enrich what we know about them and communicate accordingly.
And how have you tackled that in the premium retail environment? That's a sort of different challenge.
I don't think we've come close to cracking it. I think we're looking more, and we chat this time in 6 months' time. We should have a lot more engaging technology on the website for people to visualize their products, see it in 3D, start to think about how augmented reality fits into the furniture world, so you can actually see what size it is, what it looks. But then we want to enable our store staff to have these on tablets so they can talk customers through it. We can quite easily change all the colors on the sofa in the blink of an eye through this technology, and then send this to them back at their home email address. And part of that was obviously capturing their details so we can follow up and kind of bring them into our world.
And are you finding a very different audience across those sort of two different capture points?
We are. We know, I think it's about 60% of all our purchases will have touched both in-store and online. I think is a real differentiation between categories. So a lot of our store purchases are gifting. The people might not have come online because they want to go to Heels to buy a gift, particularly around the run into Christmas. But actually when it's, sofas and chairs, and a good friend of mine didn't know I worked at Heels, was our ideal customer, and our classic customer that he went into Google shopping, was looking for a certain type of sofa, saw Heels, went on the website, thought that was nice, came out of where we live in Buckinghamshire, all the way into London, saw the sofa, loved it, went all the way back to Buckinghamshire and then bought online. There's countless different journeys like that it's nigh impossible to really quantify, but we know that it happens, and we're trying to understand more and more about that. That sofa journey would not have happened to someone buying a candlestick. That's just a very, very different kind of experience. Again, it is one of our challenges to really think not holistically in terms of customer behaviour, but how it works at different categories and different subcategories.
So you're collecting all this data, and you sort of now better understand your customer and what they're looking at and what they're doing at the moment. So in terms of turning them into someone who loves you or loves the brand or whatever, what do you do? How do you make them love you?
Well, we try to make them like us first, but yes, I think I think it's one thing understanding what your customers are after, but a big part of why we try and do a lot of the talking and a lot of the surveying is the questions you won't get from just capturing data is, what are their biggest challenges? Why are they buying these things? But more importantly, what blockers are we putting in place? Do we not have the right stock in the shops? Is our checkout on the website not sufficient? Can they not find products? So we really try and understand. A good example recently is we had a kind of a refocus on our mattresses. It's, as I mentioned earlier, it's what Heels was founded on, and we really thought, we should be doing this better, both in store and online. So we started thinking about even the terminology we use. So from a buyer's perspective, it's tension. Mattresses have come in different tension. But you speak to a customer, it means nothing. They want a firm mattress or they want a soft mattress. In fact, when they come into store, so our store staff are also a great source of knowledge. They're speaking to customers day in, day out. Customer service, again, from the other side, they hear the less positive side sometimes. So really tapping into their knowledge. But we realised the first thing a customer wants is a soft mattress or a hard mattress. That's it. Whereas on the website, we were talking about price, brand, colour, like we did on other pages. Whereas actually no one thinks about the colour when they buy a mattress. I mean, some people do, but we're pretty much, white or cream. So really building that customer journey to align firmness first, really understanding there was some concerns around, hey, what type of mattress do I buy? There's all these different types. There's hyperallergenic, there's feather, there's cool. And really then, how do I make my mattress last longer? Because these are not cheap purchases, but they're also ones you want to last a long time. So we have a buying guide in terms of different types of mattress. We also have a mattress care guide to how to look afterwards. And, whereas in lots of previous roles, we've built blog content as much for SEO rather than the customer. For this, we know people who engage with these buying guides and these care guides then go on to buy the product. We also know that they're much less likely to return the product, so therefore, love us a bit more because they are getting the right product they want and they know how to care with it. So I think we're still quite early in this rechange of the journey, and a lot of this terminology and thinking is mirrored in store. But, particularly online in the last 6 months, we've seen a really big uplift in online mattress sales. And, we put a lot of this down to the changes we made based on all that customer knowledge.
So in terms of it helps you develop the products, refinement of those products, but has it also sort of changed the things that Heels sells as well? Other things?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a real, we work very closely with the buying team. So we know, a good example, one of our top 0 searches is curtains. But A, because Heels used to sell curtains, but B, we think because we sell everything but curtains. And it was just, it was logistically and operationally impossible to sell curtains of all the different styles and the ad hoc nature to them. But aside from the kind of obvious gaps, we see within our search data, within Google Trends, using our SEO agency, new styles, new colors, or new materials, things that, it's a really bad example, but maybe, blue was on trend last year, but we can see quite quickly through search data that, navy is the latest trend, and year-on-year growth is coming, possibly ahead of the time the buying see it. So how can we then, filter all of this knowledge we see from the data into our buying team and help support them in, developing the range?
And so maybe talk about how do you use data to, I don't know, improve conversion and retention of clients?
For a conversion perspective, I think one of the challenges is, a lot of people, and I was guilty of that early in my career, we just focus on that kind of website conversion as a metric, but it's got limited value. We know mobile converts less than desktop, and for us, mobile as a percentage, I think it's gone up from like 54 to 58% just in 12 months, and this will keep growing. So actually, your overall website revenue could be going down, but both mobile and desktop could be going up. So what we do is, we split down by marketing channels because we know our different channels perform very, very differently, but really focus on, what's the conversion between our product listing pages and our product pages? How are those pages performing? We then look at the add to basket rate on a product page, but we look at it at a product level. So what's the add to basket rate on these products now versus 12 months ago? And we're always looking at the top and the bottom 50 for these two metrics. And then obviously thinking about all the steps in basket to check out, comparing mobile versus desktop. I think you will, and the nature of seasonality, the top 50 now will be very different to the top 50 in a month's time. And you always, every single month, it's the first thing we do. What would we be expecting to see this time last year, and what are we expecting, and what are we seeing now? And really identifying, there's some products doing really well. Why is that? And similarly, the ones that are performing really badly, is it the fact that their image is just not very good? Is it, it could be just the price has gone up. It could be something as simple as that, or it could be something that my team can, really focus on and tweak and make those product pages sing a little more.
I think it was interesting you dwelled on there the sort of mobile usage and stats around that are changing over time. I wonder with a brand like Heels, which is sort of quite premium, I'm jumping to the conclusion that you'll have sort of fairly well off younger audience, but you might have a slightly older audience as well because of it's the sort of the furniture you buy when you can afford to, so to speak. My previous role at Laura James was a much, lower price point, and mobile was something up to 80%. Yeah, so that's why I was interested. Are you seeing that it's actually, if you like, the older audience being more open to using mobile as time progresses?
I think, take my parents for example, they're kind of forced into it. So I think there is that, but the conversion rates are still, double on desktop that they are on mobile. So we still, have to focus on, I don't like the term mobile first because it's almost forgetting what your best converting channel is. It's very much, it's mobile and desktop together, but, separately and together. You want that holistic look and feel. You want as holistic an experience as possible, but from a technical perspective and architecture perspective, sometimes it's just not possible. Sometimes you do need to style them differently to make sure they work both as well on both. And that's something that goes across the website. And, what we're looking to, as we speak, is around our emails as well, because obviously email traffic on mobile is even more than it is on desktop, just the nature of how people read these communications.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned there that the most customer relationships don't sort of start on, you don't start with a sale on the first interaction with you. So, I mean, you and I talked about how, to have useful data, you need to proactively find ways of collecting it and sort of doing that over a period of time and building that relationship. How are you doing that at maybe Heels now, or maybe in maybe some of the other previous businesses where you've been?
I think Pets Pajamas is a really good example. I think if anyone hasn't worked in the pet business, they should. It's a wonderful place with customers that are equally crazy and equally loyal. I think it's from a data perspective. We had the vision. It sounds like a 90s word, but we had a vision of creating a portal for all pet lovers. So we built a pet-friendly travel agent. We had a marketplace, which is, why I joined. We also built a social network for pets, a social pet work, as it was called. And then we had loyalty points that were driven off the back of everything. And every single touch point allowed us to collect data on the usage, but also gave points to the customers. So if we go to the social pet work, you had to create a pet profile. And you got, I remember the numbers now, it was something like 100 points if you created a profile. We gave you 200 points if you told us what breed your dog was, and then another 200 if you attached a photo to it. We know without doubt that people are not dog owners unless you're a mongrel. They're generally breed owners. You've got Labrador owners, they are Bernese Mountain Dog owners, and they associate with that breed intrinsically. And some of the biggest successes we had, with our CRM campaigns, is just really go, okay, we've got 5,000 Labrador owners. Let's just send them a Labrador specific email. I think it was called Love Your Labrador was the subject line. It was the best open rate we had. And the pictures in there had Labradors, obviously. We had UGC of other Labradors from the pet work. And it was a real kind of hugely successful thing. And then on the flip side, we re-architected the whole product catalog around breeds. So we signed every single product to one of 6 different dog sizes and every single breed, again, to one of these 6 different dog sizes. And it allowed us to create hundreds and thousands of pages targeted to breeds. So I think at the time, we were the only page in the whole internet that was a Bernese Mountain Dog ID tag page. And, there'd be other examples of that. It was really niche. But I remember looking at an SEO report. We'd had 3 sessions in 6 months for, I think it was the Tibetan Terrier dog bed page, which is nothing. But one of those people bought a £300 dog bed because they saw this page geared towards their dog. The beds were the right size. They had pictures of Tibetan Terriers on it. It just really engaged with them. On the assumption that product was right and felt good, that's the customer loving. They've got a website that's just created a collection just for my dog. Why would I not come back to them and check out their dog bowls for Tibetan Terriers? And I think that was a real big drive of the success of the business, but also in how we could capture data, was around not thinking about animal type and not even thinking about the customers. It was really thinking about the dog and the dog breed. And again, we'd capture birthdays of the dogs, and we would send an email to the owner from the pet 2 weeks before the birthday. Buy me this, buy me that, here's my wish list kind of thing. And it sounds cheesy and silly to non-dog owners, but my God, did they love that. And yeah, another really successful comm that we used to send out.
And Pets Pajamas is a sort of an interesting business because it, as you say, was e-commerce, but was also a travel business. Did it start one way and develop into the other, or was it always the sort of and was that a data-driven thing, I should say?
I think it was I think the plan initially was to do a bit of everything. So we were even looking at a services part of the business. So I joined when it was only, I think, 11 months old and was there for the next kind of 5 years. So I saw it grow almost from a bunch of ideas from, an entrepreneurial founder who'd had previously successful businesses. And Karen had the idea of actually having everything from the travel agent to the marketplace to let's find every dog walker, dog breeder, dog sitter, and create this services area. So actually, if you've got a dog or a cat, you wouldn't need to go anywhere else because you'd have every single thing covered. I think the products was naturally a lot easier, and that's the point where I joined to kind of really launch that. Travel was a little bit trickier. There we had a lot of biz dev and relationship building, but once we reached a bit of critical mass with that, it started to roll. It was the services was a little bit more challenging. Those are very independent businesses, very local businesses who weren't that digitally savvy, and often you speak to me, don't want any more business. I'm fine. I do the dog walking just to fit around my normal life. I don't really need any more business. So there's a real pushback on trying to actually give people more work. So I think but the travel proved so successful, both from it was no one really doing it that well, but again, from an organic perspective, we started building the website around, suitable for big dogs, suitable for large dogs, suitable for, 2 dogs, and different types of holiday, different types of venture based on, the type of animal you had.
Oh, good stuff. In terms of sort of being a data-driven business and wanting to sort of have a strategy that's really focused around data, would you say you've had to, as you've come into this business, really change the way the business has worked? Have you had to sort of, if you like, reimagine the way the back office is really thinking about data?
I think, yes, I think to a certain perspective. So we, actually, no, a lot more now I think about it. So we built I hate the word single customer view, so I won't use it because I don't think it really exists. No. But a customer data platform, and we're increasingly adding more data to it. So from sales data, we now have our digital receipts. We know what people are doing, engaging with the emails and using that. But ultimately, we want to incorporate all our customer service data, our review data. We're starting collecting UGC and really building this all up from a customer perspective to understand a lot more about them and communicate accordingly. So I think there's a real opportunity for a business that's embracing digital. So our CEO and it's one of the reasons I was keen to join, described Heels as an e-commerce business with stores, which for a 210-year-old growing business is quite a claim. And and he stands by, investing in technology, investing in digital. When I started, my first hire was a junior data analyst, which was a new role to the business. And she's come, straight out of uni and really on a day-by-day basis making, analysis and insights. So it's just changing the way we think about a number of things. But it's a mindset that, unfortunately, to work in business, that's, it's not a natural fit, but very, very eager to learn.
I think the answer is yes. Then he is a data. Very much
long-winded answer, but yes.
Yeah. No, but employing a data analyst certainly sounds like a change to a 200-odd-year-old business. And I can't do anything like this without not talking about AI. So are you getting into using AI in terms of, or how are you using AI with your data?
I think from a data perspective, not yet. I think we're still at a position where we know what we need to capture. And in fact, we have a lot of it. It's just understanding how we can integrate it and pull it together and just understand a lot more about what we have. I guess there's parts that I'm interested in is around, I've got every man and his dog telling me I should be write content, but I know from recent Google updates, they seem to be finally coming down on the people that got away with it. But what we're thinking about is how we have, say we've got 3,000 SKUs, each one's got 10 images for easy maths. We've got 30,000 images across the website. How do we use AI to name those images relative to the products? How do we get some alt text on those images, which is based on the product description? So it just allows us to get them integrated on the website quickly, but it should have, some SEO boost within Google Images. It'd be really beneficial from an accessibility perspective. So customers who are, short-sighted and rely on these readers, we can much better describe what we're putting in front of them rather than, SKU 12345.jpg. So I think there's some real opportunities there, which are not necessarily the ones that everyone's talking about. But I think we're still a little bit more scrappy when it comes to how we're using the data. But yeah, I'd love to be here in 12 months' time talking about our AI plans for data.
Oh well, we might take you up on that. That sounds. We'll see how you've used AI over the next 12 months. In terms of data, we marketers and e-commerce people often focus on obviously the acquisition and conversion. But in terms of sort of the long-term customer lifetime value and the overall ROI of the work that you do, what are the other things you would say are the benefit of really loving your data?
Our single biggest focus right now is reducing the time taken from first to second purchase, and I guess increasing the number of people who do buy a second product. For every business I've been into, once customers bought 2, maybe 3 items, you've got a loyal customer. They're there, they're obviously coming back for more, they're engaged with the brand, they understand a lot more about it. It's that drop off between first and second. Why are they going somewhere else? What can we do to understand the purchase pattern between the first product they bought and the second one they're likely to buy, understand the average time it would normally take, and just really, think about honing our communications to understand what they're likely to buy, and I think to really reduce the time they would normally take. So if an average, we know people who buy beds are likely to buy bedside tables. We know people who buy lights are actually likely to buy lights again. So it's really, as soon as they're bought and how we talk to them, it's just trying to communicate what we think they should buy next, because we know you well, but doing it obviously in a subtle and in a heels-on brand way.
Yeah. Wow. I'm going, a quick reminder to anybody, if you've got any questions, please pop them in the chat or raise your hand or whatever. So from my point of view, I think every business has built on three pillars of people, process and tools. So it might be nice to sort of pick that apart and focus on each of those. So let's start with if you like, the people bit first. What are the sort of top skills you would advise someone to go and learn right now? If they don't know it now, they should absolutely be all over this.
Well, the first one's obvious. Given the last half an hour we're talking, it is analytics. I think, as someone who's interviewed many people, anyone who comes into business, however junior, how senior, if you can tell that they've understand, they've thought about it, even if it's a small element of inquisitiveness to how their area of the website work, or if they work on merchandising and product selection, really wanting to know what customers are clicking on, where they're going, how this fits in the overall customer journey, because it's not always people get out of Excel, and it's a job that I did first into e-commerce, so I can say it's quite a grunty job at times. You're just buried in Excel, just looking at product data. But the people who take a step back and understand why we're enriching our product data, how it's affecting the website, and then what ultimately that is doing to the customer journey, I think it's obviously a useful skill to have. And then one a little bit, what I encourage my new starters to do is just sign up to competitors' newsletters, spend some time on their websites. We don't want to, we are an innovator, we are a leader, but however, there are, particularly in category specialists, so go back to the mattress example from earlier, there are people who just sell mattresses. There's some very big names who've jumped up in the last 4 or 5 years who must have spent significant volumes on A/B testing and analysis and customer. If they are all leading with a specific message first, there's a good reason for that. If they're building their category pages or their product pages in a consistently familiar architecture, again, there's got to be a reason for that. So, we don't want to completely mirror them, but there's a lot to be said in kind of understanding what's happening to people who've been doing it a lot longer than you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So the next one of those is process. So that's the kind of like, what are your rules? What are the key KPIs maybe that you employ to keep your own discipline? What are the sort of things you track every week, or so that you can prioritize and make sure that you're not letting your guard down in a particular area? What are your golden KPIs?
See, I hired a new trade manager, she must be nearly 18 months now, and one thing she brought with her was Monday.com, which I've not really used before. So it's a project management tool, but it allows all of our creative to store their assets in there, all campaigns to be set up and planning. It gives everybody, including myself, little nags when they need to come and sign stuff off. Everything's done to a timeline, and it's, for some of the team who are not necessarily very technical, it took a bit of hand-holding and a bit of warming, but now it's just bread and butter. You come in and see what the Monday queue is, and you've almost got a lot of your work kind of lined out. And from the marketing and creative people, which ultimately feed into a lot of what we're doing online, it's just been an absolute gold dust. And then I think, on top of that, there's, from KPIs, we have all the usual ones you'd expect. Something I guess try and get my team to do on a monthly basis is just to look at the quick wins on the website. So is there any 404s? So are we got any pages that are just customers are trying to find and they're not there? And it's, it's a quick win. We can fix this easily. It's a really poor customer experience, and also it's harming our SEO. So I think that's something we can look at. And then going through our search logs. As I mentioned, we get tens of thousands of searches a month. And in there are searches that are just no one's clicking on. There's searches that are producing 0 products, and some of them will be the curtains that we'll never sell curtains. So we have to think about how we can communicate that fact. But there will be synonyms customers can't spell. So Pets Pajamas, I think we had 10 different spellings for Chihuahua. I now know how to spell Chihuahua, but a lot of people don't. And there was every month you'd go in, you go, my God, they spelled it a different way. But the customers would get a 0 search result page because the website didn't know. But by going in there every month and looking at what's not working, the next person who spells it that crazy way would get to the Chihuahua page.
I mean, obviously it's classic to sort of measure the amount of people that are visiting the website, category view pages, product views, and things like that. But are there any that you think are the I don't know, the things that the lights you would have on your dashboard that, if they're going red, then we've got a problem. The one you've mentioned one already, this idea that it's not always even some of the good journeys that are. I always want to know what are the best journeys that are happening so we can do more of it, and what are maybe, like you say, the dead ends or the bad journeys that we can kill. And it's the two extremes that probably require the most focus, because you can make quite a big impact by sometimes quite a small thing if you know where they are.
Yeah, I think that the two biggest metrics that Lucy and my team looks at every Monday is, product page views and product add to baskets at a product level year on year. That's the one thing. If we've got the same amount of views of a key range that we had 12 months ago, but half as many people adding to basket, we've got an issue. If the add to basket rate's the same, we've got half as many people looking at it. Maybe we need to look a bit more higher up the funnel and see if there's any differences happening to our marketing strategies. And then a similar thing to our category pages. So, we have like everyone, a very tight marketing calendar. We know any given month what category we're expecting to be doing well, and it will be very, very similar to the 12 months before. And we can try and understand why less people are looking at those pages, or if they are, why they're not converting as much. So I think there was two key metrics to look at. It would be that.
And that's a weekly thing for you as well.
No, absolutely, yeah.
And then the last one was in terms of tools. You've mentioned Monday.com for organising your content and your campaigns, etc. Have you got any other sort of like your favourite sort of tools, be it for analysing data, hosting platforms? What other sort of platforms do you love, and maybe what are your channels that you're excited about?
Boring, but I love Excel. Doesn't matter what planet, and then one of my agencies, who remain nameless, keeps sending me bloody PDFs every month, and I'm just give me an Excel file because I'm just going to copy it in Excel. I think it's underused from sorting, looking stuff up, joining data, even the stuff as you've got the conditional highlights to look at red down to green. It's just a wonderful way of visualizing stuff, and it drives most of the decision making in our business. But I think away from Excel, it's an interesting. Tools are very, very specific to the business and their requirement. But one thing that we launched just before Christmas is advanced commerce to do our search and merchandising, and there's a lot of stuff we can do with merchandising our products. It's be a whole new podcast on there that we're scratching the surface with, but it's really producing valuable to our team to be able to algorithmically promote stuff at the right level, but also give them to control and understanding of what's working and what's not working well.
Yeah, I mean, some people call it productizing, some people call it merchandising. I don't know how many thousand products or whatever you've got. That's it's something in a retail environment. It's very easy to see, and you'll bring things to the front, and you can see them. As people walk in the door. It's a finely crafted science that we've kind of learnt. Retail environment design, if you like, and I still think it's something absolutely. Online is still not that mature.
Yeah, and everyone has an opinion, and it's a challenge to. Yeah, again, use the data that we see online that may or may not be the same as in store. But we know, mattresses will always sell better in store than online by the nature of what they were. But it wasn't that long ago people say, you can't sell sofas online. But every single week now, our biggest individual product sale is always a sofa, many sofas. So it's a customer's mindset are changing. Doesn't mean they haven't been thought to see them, but they're increasingly, happy to buy online.
Yeah.
But from a channel perspective, yeah, I think that what we are, like many, have been heavily reliant on Google. But what we're seeing the last 12 months improvements is across some of the social channels. So particularly Instagram and actually Pinterest, seeing a lot more engagement and a lot more the big challenge is from an in-platform metrics perspective, they're taking over the world, but from a Google Analytics perspective, they're doing absolutely zero. And we know the truth is somewhere in between. So while we know they are getting better, the big challenge for my data analyst is really trying to understand the relative attribution. Is also really trying to understand, what is quite a long buying cycle for some products, but obviously a lot less for some, and just trying to, I don't want to be building an attribution model because I'm not sure that there is one that fits for everybody, but it's just trying to understand a little bit more. It might be as simple as just segmenting everything from top of the funnel, bottom of the funnel to something in the middle, to at least trying to evaluate these different channels. But from a kind of, I guess, a year-on-year improvement, it is, Pinterest is the one is getting us quite excited, and also thinking about how, we can use technology on the platform to create mood boards. Instead of a wish list where people tick a button and it goes somewhere and never used, how can we actually have almost a mood board that people can put these products on a board, move them around, put them together, put colours that match or don't match, and then share it with their friends? It's something, we're hoping to have in place come Christmas. It's something we're certainly looking into.
I mean, it's interesting you talk about Pinterest. Not many people talk about Pinterest as a channel, even though it's a platform that's been around for a long, long time. I'm trying to think how old it is, actually. Feels I don't know, a good 10, 12 years. I don't know.
Yeah, it must be. It will never outperform Google. It's about saying. I think it's but from a top of the funnel and a creative perspective, it's something we're definitely looking at.
Yeah, I mean, interior design is probably what I'd think of Pinterest as being the thing that people do. They put up their pin boards of their ideas for indoors, outdoors, or whatever in the home. So do you think that then Pinterest is having a bit more of a resurgence, or it's just you're learning how to embrace what's been there all the time?
That's a very interesting question. I think it's definitely the latter. It's certainly working more for us, and it's it would be interesting to hear from others if they're seeing similar, or if the overall metrics are going in the right direction. But both anecdotally and within what we're seeing, it certainly seems to be getting the right people on there.
So we're kind of coming close to the end of the time now. So I'm going to ask you one more and then open it up. So we'd love to hear about all the good and the bad on this show. So I'll be interested to know if you've got any advice or stories, war stories or otherwise, which you would, there's things you've done that you might do differently in the future, maybe.
Good question. I think if you go back and look at all my career, and one thing I like to think I've hopefully got better as I've got older, is just listening. When you go into a new business, you're so excited, they've hired you for a reason, you've got all these skills, you just want to prove a point. But actually, there's a good argument to just don't do anything for a month. Just spend time with the key stakeholders. You just never know where advice is, where help is. If you're too busy just trying to change the world, you might be not doing the right thing, but you might be missing a trick. And I go back to one of my previous roles. There was an IT director who was an elderly man. He's retired now, and everyone just knew him as a no man. Just said no to everything and didn't get digital. And I unfortunately just took everyone's advice and didn't spend that much time with him. But before I left the company, we were having quarterly lunches, because actually he knew every single nuance of the business. He knew everybody. He knew how all the technology lined up. And the reason he was a no man is because he reported into the CFO and he had very, very tight budgets. But he would be thinking 2-3 years ahead. So actually, he would more than happy have a conversation as to what would come down the line and how this digital e-commerce technology could fit into the wider business processes. And as him and his boss, the CFO, were chatting plans, he was the right man to have the ear of. But it took me a good year to understand that, that's the right person to have. So I think, just don't go in all guns blazing, and just find out the right people to speak to. I think it's a not necessarily digital tip, but I think it's something for any business, I guess.
So I know Heels because I'm 53. So I've always known Heels as a kind of quality, well-designed, aspirational brand. But I asked one of my millennial friends the other day if she knew them, and she just bought a house, and she's right in that situation where she would buy quality furniture, and she didn't know them. So I'm kind of curious. You've talked about Pinterest and Instagram, but have you looked at TikTok or any of the other sort of social platforms?
I think it's fair to say we have dabbled in it, and the challenge of that is, it's a small team, and dabbling is not sufficient. I know from people who've done it very, very well, it is about consistency, it's about testing, it's about learning, and I'd love to say we'd have some resource and some time to do that over a period and try and make it work, but yeah, unfortunately not. But it is an interesting point about brand visibility, and we know, you speak to anybody around London of a certain demographic, they know Heels. Even Brighton, where we haven't had the store for 2 years, it still resonates. But I'm from Norwich, and very few people have heard of Heels because it's just not a local business. And as our marketing is, we're still just a UK based business, but our marketing is national. It is a lot we need to think about, more up the funnel, more brand awareness. We did a bit around kind of YouTube brand videos and reaching out in the run up to Christmas. It's the longevity of the success of them is yet to be proven, but I think we need to think a lot more about that for people like your friend. We want people who are thinking of 2-seater sofas and not typing it into Google to have Heels front of mind, and I think that's a real opportunity for us.
Yeah, it's about the aspiration, right? It's the desire to own such an object.
As someone who now fortunately has a couple of Heels pieces, they are beautiful. They are, there's a demographic that we have that's not necessarily the old rich people living in the country, but the more kind of younger urban who are doing well but want by a piece, not, I'm not greenwashing saying sustainable, but they look at buying products that are going to last a lifetime or 30 years rather than stuff that's going to last 5 and need to replace it. And I think we are one of those brands that people who know us know that the products are going to last hopefully a lifetime, and they trust that.
That's great. There's certainly a sustainability angle there. I'm conscious of the time now. We've been going a good 50 minutes, so I'm not seeing any more questions in our feed. I'm sorry about that, but it's been a fantastic time. I've learned a hell of a lot. I think hopefully those that listen have done so too. So I can only say thank you for that, Mark. Thank you for everyone who tuned in as well. I'd like to remind everybody as well, while I've still got you, that we have another one of these wonderful Shoponomics events. This time it will be on a Wednesday, on the 3rd of April. We have a lovely lady, Anu. She's e-commerce product lead at Whitbread. So please tune in for that. And also, all of our Shoponomics recordings are available on podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, any of your sort of favourite your favourite podcast channels. So yeah, all I can say now then, thank you, Mark. That's been amazing. I hope you've enjoyed it.
No, brilliant. Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks a lot.